Welcome on back to the N Harmon Show. I'm Dalton Wicks alongside Eric Harmon.
This week's show, we got MLB updates for you. We're going to talk about the NBA Finals and, of course, the San Jose Sharks.
Hey, it was a great season for them. We're also, hey, just to lighten the mood a little bit, we have our guest back today.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Say hello to the folks.
Hi there. My name is Arthur Ballesteros.
Arthur, welcome back.
They know who you are. They should remember you.
They recognize the voice.
I remember all of them as well.
Let's get to it.
Good to be back. Let's jump into some sports. So would you like to start us off with what went wrong, Eric?
Yeah. Oh, man, the San Jose Sharks. The entire time I was saying that I thought the Sharks were a better team than these Pittsburgh Penguins. That was obviously just me being biased. The Pittsburgh Penguins were a class above the San Jose Sharks. And the way you could tell that is that Pittsburgh was basically able to play their game for a full 60 minutes, while the Sharks would only get in like 5 or 10 minute little periods of good play. But other than that, I mean, Martin Jones, the only way Sharks won games was with Martin Jones played out of his mind.
He's very good, very talented goalkeeper. So it sounds like they found a good goalkeeper to kind of be the cornerstone there for a long time.
The potential is there. He's put in one good season. The thing is that what you'll see in the NHL quite often is that there's guys who are like this, who will put in one good season and then completely just fall off the map. So you got to be worried about that, but
hopefully he puts in the work and effort and he can sustain it.
Yeah, because the quality of play he put in this year was absolutely top notch. So if he can be consistent, I mean, he can be 6 or 7 years of just quality play in their net. That'd be amazing. That'd be awesome.
And while they're a little bit, there are quite a few veterans on the team. They do have a very solid youth core on that team as well. Like Donskoy has a very high talent ceiling, and he could get even better as the years go on.
Yeah, and then they got to re-sign Tomas Hertl.
Hertl's still younger.
One of their young guys.
Even
Chris Tierney is good.
Even Couture's not even that old yet.
Pavelski is the oldest of the young guys. He's 30 now. I guess you can't really call him a young guy anymore. But
and guys play, it's possible to make a hockey career last in your mid, maybe even late 30s. Yeah, just some of the good ones, anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Joe Thornton's starting to get to that period. Patrick Marleau's taking a bit of his foot off the gas pedal. His play hasn't been as consistent this year as it has been in years past. He's up for re-signing. It's going to be interesting to see what they do because he got $6 million last year. He's not worth that much money anymore, but he's been with the team for so long that you got to wonder if they're going to give him like a little team for being with us sort of thing. Sorry, he's not getting re-signed this year. He's going to be a free agent next year. But, there's questions surrounding him because his play dropped off a lot. Like he scored 48, or he scored a good amount of points, but a majority of it came on the power play. So he hasn't been as good 5-on-5 as he has recently. That's one of the big questions for the Sharks. You got to figure out what we're going to do on that third pair on defense. I mean, we had a combination of one guy who I had a joke for him. He was actually playing for the other teams in these playoffs by just how many mistakes he made. Like the amount of ridiculous passes he'd make to the center of the ice of the other team is just. So there's a couple of questions, but this team's pretty strong. So they add a couple more players, depth players. I mean, they could be right back in the mix of it next year. That's all you can ask for in hockey, just being in the mix of it and hoping the breaks go your way.
We also got to be kind to the Sharks too, because in sports in general, it's really difficult to make that leap up into that spotlight, that prime time, and then just steal a championship like that. That was a first for the Sharks being in the Stanley Cup. So maybe now that they've had a taste and now that they've been there and they could say that they've been in those scenarios, they've experienced it, maybe they come back even stronger next year or the year after. Maybe now that they've finally gotten into that kind of playoff mode where it's on the line.
Yeah, it's the same idea in basketball where, you really have to lose it and have your heart broken a couple of times before you really can make that jump. And I kind of agree with the sentiment. I think that getting to the finals, they played really well up in those three finals, very composed because they've lost so many times in those 3 rounds already that they knew what they needed to do. And then they got to the finals, and it just seemed like a lot of that discipline was just gone, and they were in over their heads. So hopefully, now that they have these Stanley Cup final games underneath them, they'll work off it, become more and more calm, and hopefully they'll make it back. But
hockey's a brutal sport. It is a brutal sport, and maybe it's more of conditioning yourself because a lot of those guys hadn't been playing this far into the season before. They hadn't. Was there one or two guys who had maybe experienced the Stanley Cup on the roster?
Martin Jones
Martin
a backup, and I think they're Zubris, Danius Zubris, the fourth line winger for the Sharks.
The most part, most of these guys were pretty new to the whole situation.
Exactly. So,
but now, hey, next year they can't say that it's new territory. They've been there before, so maybe they'll add a piece, maybe. A guy who wasn't as big in this year's playoffs steps up even further next year. So there's still plenty of hope and plenty of skill and team camaraderie and chemistry to hang on to here.
Yeah, I mean, Doug Wilson has bought himself so much leeway this last offseason. I mean, the fans wanted his head last year after they missed the playoffs. Well, they were like, we need to fire this guy right now. And then he made the trade for Martin Jones. He brought in Joel Ward. He found Don Scoy, and then he also signed Paul Martin. All four of those guys, incredibly plus players. Like, it just knocked him out of the park. Yes, he also got re-signed Mike Brown, I think, but then he ended up cutting him. So, I mean, that was a mistake. But other than that, he's been just aces this season. So, give him another offseason. He deserves another year or two.
So shout out to the Pittsburgh Penguins for having a good series. Sid the Kid, man, you can't hate on him. He's truly one of the best in the game.
I'm better. I'm stronger. I'm Batman.
You know he didn't score a goal in this series?
He didn't.
And he won the Conn Smythe Award. He won that purely on name alone.
Yeah, he did. He did, but it's more of just his impact on the game. I think he draws more defense towards him. He draws guys are way more concerned about him, and that opens up other opportunities for other people on the ice.
And not only that, like, he keeps the puck in the other team's defensive zone the entire time he's on the ice. Like, it's impossible to get him going backwards the other way, it seemed like. It just didn't happen at all.
I think players like him know how to really make their stamp and their mark on the game without scoring. That when you're that smart and that talented, you know how to just make things kind of roll your way. And it wasn't just him. There's several other great players on the Penguins.
One guy I want to shout out on the Penguins, Nick Bonino. He was actually playing with an infected elbow the entire Stanley Cup Finals. Like, he was quarantined. He didn't practice at all the entire week. He was quarantined in his hotel. They were draining him, giving him IV fluids. His fever was hitting 101. Like, he would just rest. He would just play in these games, and then he would go back to resting again. And it's crazy because if you saw him on the ice, this is the guy who is stopping all the Brent Burns, like, slap shots and wrist shots. He was diving in front, just sacrificing his body over and over again. And for a guy to do that while just being so mentally ill, like literally unable to go home, like, or not mentally ill, physically. Physically ill.
You'd like it if he was mentally ill.
Yeah, I think that was a Freudian slip there. But, so yeah, credit to him. And it makes sense because he was drafted by the San Jose Sharks. So obviously we saw something, and we decided to give it away. I don't know why we did that, but it is what it is.
Yeah, they really did. They put it together. The Pittsburgh Penguins, they were kind of overshadowed a little bit too, I think. Well, at least, I mean, obviously in the Bay Area, everybody's so hyped about the Sharks coming in. But, I mean, a lot of people just overlooked the Penguins, and they just didn't think. We thought it was this year was the year for the Sharks, and they were going to get things done. But, you know, they're Phil Kessel and Sidney Crosby and all of the heavyweights over on the Penguins, they had other ideas.
Yeah, and on top of that, Evgeny Malkin, another Pittsburgh Penguins player, he was at Game 6 last night in Cavs gear.
Do you know who I also just randomly I want to say? Only I think would have noticed this, just him in street clothes, because I'm such a diehard baseball fan. Jason Kipnis, the second baseman for the Indians, was in the crowd, and I totally saw him. I was like, that's Jason Kipnis. I totally knew who that was.
Everyone else is like, no one cares.
And everybody's going to be looking at me like, Dalton, who the hell is Jason Kipnis?
Oh, Jason Kipnis. Oh, yeah, man.
Cleveland Indians first place still. Yeah.
Good on the Sharks. Good on the Sharks this season. I got to say, I'm so happy with what they did this year. Like, there's no way from expectations. I mean, we weren't even in the playoffs last year, so realistically for any of us to say, oh, man, like, we should be winning the Cup this year, that wouldn't have been realistic. So the fact that they got to the Cup and went farther than they've ever been before and, like, just played so well this year.
They gave you a hell of a season.
Yeah.
They gave the Sharks fans plenty to cheer about, plenty to get hyped and just excited and happy to watch. Hockey was big in the Bay Area again. We were all hyped. There was all that commotion about a double parade coming up, and we were all ready for things to just go down and a big celebration to ensue. But it was just it's good that we even had those thoughts, right? I mean, that's what we can take solace in. Just it's nice that we were able to even talk about that. Yeah. It could have been a lot worse where the Sharks missed out in the playoffs again, and then the general manager, the coach, everybody just washed away, and then they just break the team up and start all over from square one.
Yeah, so. I can assure you that if they had not made the playoffs, Marlowe would have been gone. Questions would have been asked about Thornton. Questions would have been asked about Pavelski.
Lots of questions.
Yeah, tons of
questions that need answers.
You know who has them? N Harmon. No.
He's out there on the market, guys. Yeah. He's out there. If you're looking for some front office help.
Yeah, I've got some NHL 16 GM experience, some Eastside hockey manager, general manager experience. So basically, I've been doing this for all my life, if you really want to think about it. So.
Alrighty, now we're going to jump into some baseball talk. We're fastly approaching that midway mark. Midway's usually around,
How close are we to the All-Star game? A month?
We're pretty close. It's going to be mid-July, I believe. It's usually around that time. So we're approaching that end of June, early July, where you're really starting to figure out who's the contender, who's the pretender at this point.
Absolutely.
There's teams that are starting to fall way behind in the pack. There's teams that are still hanging in the race by a thread. There's teams making pushes. Lots of guys getting injured. You're finding out where the areas of need are on the team.
And then there's the San Francisco Giants. I don't know.
What was all this June swoon talk
that you
were throwing my way last week,
I was throwing an anti-jinx in there, all right?
Okay.
It was very specific on my part, and I think it worked out for us. But now that I'm talking about it, I may just reverse jinxed the initial anti-jinx.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
Creating
now they're going to drop their next
a black
6 games.
hole of jinx that is going to just kill the rest of their June.
Yep.
It's been good for the job, but let's get into that a little.
Arthur, we need more out of you.
Hello. Are we recording? Wait, what?
What's happening?
Oh, we're doing Player of the Month right now, right? Are we talking about the Giants?
Yeah, we were just doing a little small talk.
Yeah, we're just kind of talking some what's happening in baseball right now. Anything you want to point out?
This past 2 weeks, I have not been paying attention to baseball at all because
it's like these last 2.5 months for me.
Yeah, just because of the NBA Finals but.
You better get used to it because once Game 7's over, that's all you're gonna get.
I'm gonna be forced to watch the A's again very closely and keep my fingers crossed that they don't get no hit every time that they go out there. I mean yesterday. What was that? That was yesterday. Yeah, when Max Muncy broke up that no hitter. I mean, I don't know. This lineup it's not worth watching. There's nothing entertaining about this team. Danny Valencia, that's it. And
that's my boy.
I remember the last time that I was on here, and I kind of made a joke about having a Danny Valencia bobblehead night, but I think that has to be a legitimate thing now. He is
the only person producing.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, how stupid do you think the Blue Jays feel now for cutting him, essentially? They DFA'd Valencia. At the time, he was hitting .290.
Yeah.
And they DFA'd him. And the A's were like,
did they DFA him for someone? Like, what was it, like a move
someone was getting reinstated from the DL. I don't know who, but they just they designated him for assignment, and he was hitting .290 at the I remember it clear as day. And then the A's pick him up off the waivers, and I was,
they're just looking around at the other teams like, well, okay, like, thanks, guys.
But I mean, the Blue Jays kind of had a log jam too at. Like with third base and DH, like where were you going to necessarily play Valencia?
He plays a little second base and corner outfield too, so there was a use for him definitely. Like he could have, like the great use for him this year that you could have had him for is as a platoon partner for Michael Saunders in left field. So
Yeah,
that could have been a great option for them. That would be a fantastic platoon, honestly, because Saunders is hitting the crap out of the ball this year against righties, and then you have Valencia against lefties.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to fault the Blue Jays because this is our star player right now. So thank you, Blue Jays.
Yeah, thank you, Blue Jays.
Maybe I'm just seeing.
They owed us one for the JD trade.
I don't know his contract details whatsoever, but I see he's getting close to 6 years of experience. Maybe the Blue Jays were just like, we don't want to deal with him once he becomes a free agent. And this is just completely reckless speculation on my part. I have no proof behind this.
They do have a pretty stingy free agent. That's why they didn't re-sign David Price.
Yeah.
Russell Martin, the contract they gave to him was the largest they had ever given to anybody. And that's why they're so hesitant to extend Joey Bats, which is actually looking like a pretty good idea so far. But there's another guy they might have regretted not signing to an extension a little bit earlier this season as talks died down, Edwin Encarnacion, who we'll get into a lot more later. But for right now, I did want to gloss over quickly the injury report around the league. Some key names, like we said, you're starting to find out where teams are really going to need to upgrade as these guys get hurt and go down. JD Martinez, who actually was really hot for the Tigers the last week or so with a 500 average and was really carrying that offense, he just broke his elbow. That's an unfortunate loss. He's going to be out about 6 weeks. Glenn Perkins... Yeah, I know the Twins are not exactly having the best year so far. They're really in the cellar of the AL Central,
and it's not getting better.
Yeah, and Glenn Perkins is out for the year with a rotator cuff injury, so that doesn't help them. Not that having a closer matters on a really crappy team, but at least they can't even trade him now. Jorge Soler Power, also out for a little bit with a hamstring injury for the mighty Cubs. Felix Hernandez, going to be a big blow for the Mariners, who are actually looking to be in the playoff hunt this year. He's going to be out until it looks like the All-Star break with a nagging calf.
That's going to be big because they've been looking really good this year behind solid pitching and behind really solid power numbers from Cano and Nelson Cruz. Losing one of those guys, oh man, it's going to be tough to see if they can hold on until he comes back, because I've kind of gotten behind them as a team because you never see the Seattle Mariners.
Don't you say
anymore.
that? Don't.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
There's still hope. There's still hope.
Yeah, only 14 and a half games back.
Danny Valencia.
Over? Did you say over? Nothing is over until we decide it is.
All right, let's get back to it. 14 and a half.
And what's kind of sad, too, is we mentioned off air a little while ago, too, is David Wright did just reveal that he's got a herniated disc and he is going to opt for surgery. Such a great guy. What a great staple for the Mets fans and Mets nation and in New York. He's been a staple there for a long time. Great guy, great player. And he's going to have to undergo some pretty serious surgery. He's had some very bad back and neck issues throughout his career. So you hate to see this happen to such a good guy, but hopefully he can make a return.
He had been trying to play through it, and you could just you could see his numbers. They're just 226 batting, just only 7 home runs. The power was kind of there, but the average wasn't there. It was just, you could see like it was affecting his play negatively.
Back injuries are rough. They're really rough.
Yeah, and especially at a position like that requires so much flexibility. And, just takes a really hard toll on your body. But it's sad with David Wright, too, because when he first came into the league, people were speculating that he could be one of the top third basemen of all time, with his combination of...
the hype was real.
Yeah. But the tail end of his career, the last 3-4 years, have just... It's sad to watch a guy have to go through all of those things, and especially now.
Kind of like Ken Griffey in a way.
Yeah, very similar. I mean, except, David Wright never put up back-to-back 56 home runs seasons. But, but a similar situation.
Affecting the game in different ways.
Yeah. But, I mean, how much is David Wright going to have left coming back from something like this, next year or whatever? It's sad to watch a guy go out like that. Not that he's going out, but you can't assume that he's going to rebound. And,
he's stuck, because I think the way to extend his career or prolong it is to have him be on an American League team with the option of the DH, but he's a Met lifer, and I don't think he has the heart to leave that team. And he wouldn't want to don another uniform. He wants to be a Mets player for life, and it would probably kill him to have to suit up for like the the Red Sox or the Yankees or something like that.
Yeah.
He's only had 150. He had 152 at bats last year. He had 137 at bats this year. I mean, the injury issues are just becoming so big for him. It could be. I agree that it might be the last we see of David Wright. This many back and neck injuries. It's sad to see. Definitely sad to see.
And a couple other pitching injuries of note. Garrett Cole for the Pirates, who are very well in the thick of things in the NL Central and the playoffs over in the National League. Garrett Cole's dealing with a bit of a triceps injury. Doesn't look like it's too bad, but it could be something worse. We're not sure at this point. So he's on the 15-day DL. And unfortunately for Texas, even though Texas is still, they've proven that they can play very well without him, I think they will need Yu Darvish if they're going to hope to contend for a title. And he has found his way back to the DL as well after only 3 starts with a nagging shoulder injury. So
good news about that is the MRI didn't show anything.
Yeah.
So they're just playing it safe with him.
yeah,
And he came back and he had pitch limits on himself, and he still put up 19 Ks in those I don't know if it was 3 starts or 2 starts. Let me see. 3 starts. Yeah, 3 starts. He only went 5 innings in all 3 of his starts, and he had 7 Ks in the first game, 5 Ks in the second game, and then 7 Ks again. So, like, the lightning stuff is still there. They just want to make sure that he's 100% before he comes back. Players of the week?
yeah.
Let's do it.
Arthur, why don't you start us off, man?
Well, I know, talking off air a little bit, I don't want to steal your thunder, but I don't think that there's any way that you can go with anybody else except for Edwin Encarnacion when you look at the numbers that he put up this week. I mean, his OPS it looks like the rent for like an apartment in San Francisco. It's like 1,900 or something like that. But just an incredible week with 6 homers, 14 RBIs. He's hitting like 435, something like that. I mean, I still, every time that I see him, and when he was putting up those 40 homer years, strung a few of them together, just wishing that the A's hadn't given up on him before bringing him up to the major leagues. It's always heartbreaking to see a guy like that have such a good career after you know that he was in the farm, and they let him go for probably nothing. I don't know, but great week for Edwin Encarnacion.
It's very unlikely that the A's do something like that because usually we wait for them to have a season like that and then we ship him off somewhere.
Yeah, I remember the scouting reports on him before. Nobody was really projecting that kind of power from him when he was younger, but then he put up, I think it was like a 26-homer season with Cincinnati back in the mid-2000s, and since then he just took off, and obviously with the Blue Jays, and that combo of Batista and Encarnacion has been a power surge for years and years now. So yeah, that's my guy.
Eric, who are you looking at?
I'm actually going to go with a different Toronto Blue Jay. Your boy, JD Josh Donaldson, putting up a 462 batting average, 1.405 OPS, of course, obviously nowhere close to Encarnacion's with all the home runs he's been given, but I don't want to repeat people. So here we go. He went 12 for 26 this last week, 2 home runs, 9 RBIs, 2 stolen bases, and 10 runs. And really, that whole Toronto offense has just been crazy. Like, the third person that I could have picked for Player of the Week was also a Toronto Blue Jay, and Kevin Pillar. So they have been killing it.
Yeah, they really have. I'll go. Honestly, the Player of the Week is Edwin Encarnacion, but just for the sake of throwing another name out there to just kind of say, hey, he had a good week, I do want to give props to Salvador Perez on the Kansas City Royals. 4 dingers and 7 RBIs, hitting over 400 the last 7 days, and it's more of just his overall impact because that's not what he's mainly on that team to do. He's on that team to take control of that pitching staff, be the great guy behind the plate, and he's a hell of a catcher, hell of a defender, and when he's hitting like that too, he is the best catcher in the American League.
They've had so many injuries, they need him to step up because, like,
and he has.
Yeah, and he's come through in spades for them. Like, it's been a great last month or so from Salvador Perez.
Yeah, so those are the guys that I've really just stepped it up the last week or so, and I think we'll move into some Bay Area talk now. We'll start on the less glamorous side. Your green and gold. We were saved by Max Muncy. We really were.
Yeah, that getting that to he was leading off the ninth, wasn't he? And he led off with that that double. Yeah, it's thank you, Max Muncy. When was the last time that the A's were no hit? Do you remember?
I don't know, but what I was saying is while I was watching the game is I don't think they've ever had a perfect game thrown against them. I can't remember the last time they've been no hit.
Yeah, I don't think that they've
I'm on it.
They haven't had a perfect game thrown against them. I mean, obviously there was the Dallas Braden one that he got for them, and then they had Kenny Rogers for a couple of years who pitched one for, I think it was Texas, but
Philip Humber, who threw one for the White Sox, he donned an A's uniform too.
did it Humber?
Humber was Humber was a member of the A's, yeah.
Oh, okay.
After, and he's kind of hanging on to his career a little bit, but
yeah, I mean, it's not good times in Oakland right now. I mean, I think the most exciting thing that has happened this year for the A's is having Draymond Green at the Coliseum during his suspension. Like, that caused the most uproar that Coliseum has seen all year.
I found the last no-hitter thrown against the A's. It was a combined no-hitter, not one person. It was a unit. The
60 years ago.
Baltimore Orioles in 1991.
Oh, wow.
Well,
And,
it's been a pretty decent amount of time.
And the last time a one person did it was the year before. It was a little-known pitcher by the name of Nolan Ryan.
Well, I don't feel as bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's not too bad for.
There hasn't been one in my lifetime.
Yeah.
That's all I need to know.
Yeah. There's been 14 total though. So then now you know. The more you know. The more you know. Sorry, that was.
Thank you for the show, Jess.
But I mean, is there really any reason to watch this team right now? Like, what is motivating you right now?
Hey now, I no matter what, I'm always watching this team. It can be tough at times, but it makes when this team will eventually, whether it's next year, the year after, or whenever, when they dig their way out of the trenches and they're playing well again, it makes it that much sweeter. Because then you remember all of those times that you were watching all of the just mediocrity and not piecing things together, and it makes it sweeter.
Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. And I went through a long period of down years as an A's fan when I was growing up as well. But
We really all have. I mean,
yeah. Oh, you're an A's fan?
I'm a Giants fan and
okay.
a Niners fan. So I've had 20 years combined. I guess maybe it's like 7 or 8 for the Giants and then 13 for the Niners. But it's been pretty bad. Like,
I bet the last 6 years for you as a Giants fan has been really torturous.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
The thing is,
I like from 02 to like 09 is what I'll say was our dark years.
I will say the only thing that you could probably really gripe about is how on earth the Giants didn't win a World Series when they had Bonds.
Yeah.
and that's one of the things too. It's like on the Giants side, even when you guys weren't winning World Series, you at least had one of the best players of all time playing that you could watch every day, day in and day out. And they usually were in the mix for a playoff spot at least. But with the A's, after the meltdown that happened after the Cespedes trade, I used to think that I could never like step away from being, not that I'm stepping away from being a fan, it's just I can't pay as much attention to them day in and day out after consistently having my heart broken with different moves that have been made with that team. So, of course, I still love them. I still follow them, but I just don't dedicate the same amount of time because I know that eventually I'm just going to get my heart broken again with the way that this team has to construct itself year in, year out.
You sound like a Sharks fan, too, I'm just going to say.
Oh, do I? Is that Sharks fans complain about that? I don't know. I haven't watched like a hockey game since, I don't know, like Mighty Ducks 2 or something. So, it's been a while. I don't know what's going on with the Sharks. But, yeah, it's nice.
It's just Mighty Ducks 2 over and over again. That's it.
Every day. But, yeah, I don't know. So what are you watching for when you're watching the A's right now?
What I mainly want to see is just the youth continuing to progress. That's the only thing I'm looking for because while I am a really diehard A's fan, at the same time, I keep it realistic at all times.
Yeah.
The veterans that are playing on the team, they can play really well. That's all cool and everything. But in reality, I know that they're not going to last on the A's. There's not many A's lifers these days.
Yeah.
So I don't pay as much attention to that. Reddick, Valencia, Madsen, Axford, all those vets on the team. If they play well, that's cool. But if not, the guys I'm mainly looking at, I want Manaea to be pitching well. I want Mengden to be pitching well. Fegley to make strides behind the plate. Simeon to continue getting better in the infield. And I just want all these youngsters, Billy Burns, those kind of guys, to just step up their game and prove that they're worth keeping around and that we can make some sort of core and add to it and then actually have another team kind of rise up. Kind of like when Donaldson, Cespedes, and Moss and all those guys rose up and out of nowhere. And we those guys weren't expected to contend, but then all of a sudden they did.
Yeah, no, totally. I still, even the young guys that they have, though, outside of Manaea, and I like Simeon if he can, cut down on the errors and everything, but I don't see one of those players as being a guy that you can build a team around. I don't get that excited for any of these guys. At least when Cespedes' first year, it was really exciting because of all the hype around him. He was somebody who was internationally known and followed. But a lot of these guys, I think that they can be definitely good role players for a consistently competitive team. But I just don't know if there's a guy there or a couple of guys who you can really rally around and start to build and get other pieces to build around them.
They're supporting pieces at best right now.
Yeah.
I agree with you. There's no one that's sitting there a superstar in the making. They're all very decent pieces at best, and I think we're still lacking those. And hey, while we're having these painful seasons right now and getting these high draft picks, those are probably our superstars right there without us knowing it yet.
Yeah, and I like what they were able to do with getting Puck at the 6th pick, because I know that he was rumored to go number 1. So, that's a great pick. Again, it's on the pitching side, though.
Pitching wins championships, though, I will say. I mean, look at the Kansas City Royals. That's a prime example right there. No big superstar power hitters right there. They had guys who just had timely hitting. Same with the Giants. None of those Giants guys hit more than 20 home runs in a season. And they don't necessarily all hit for 300 averages, too. It's timely hitting.
Yeah.
It's finding those right guys that just know when to come up clutch and when to get hits.
I'll take a guy who's batting 270, 260 with like a 375 RISP than over a guy who's batting 300 and having the same thing.
Yeah, it's true. But, I mean,
that's what the Giants do.
I like the attack. I think in the MLB draft, too, because there's so many rounds, I'm not a big fan of going where your areas of need are. You just need to take the best guy available.
Yeah, totally.
Best guy available. So if it's a pitcher, and the next round it's another pitcher, and it's just keep drafting pitchers.
Another one. Another one. And another one.
I guess that's what you're doing.
Because it's not like in football where you're going to see those guys playing within a year or two. Like, you may not see baseball players be playing for 6 or 7 years before they're. So it's really, you have to pick for the best and just load up on all the talent you have as pieces, really, to hopefully make trades.
That's what a lot of people forget is there's 5 levels that you have to go through potentially in the minors. And it might take all 5 years, like a year in each one. Only the very special guys go quickly through there. So you got rookie, low A, high A, double A, and triple A. And then you're going to maybe get to the majors if you last that long.
Yeah,
so
you're probably going to get traded 2 or 3 times along the way while you're in the minors.
It's very, very likely, especially when your name is found on that top 100 prospects list. It's almost like that just enhances the fact that you might get traded.
Yeah.
It's almost like you don't want to be on that list because then you won't be known as much, and then you could just have more time to develop in your organization.
You became a trade piece as soon as you're on that list. You became like a little chip.
All eyes are on you all of a sudden.
Every team knows about you now.
So, the A's 4th worst win total in Major League Baseball. No really getting around that. They're just not playing the best of ball. Almost getting no hit by Colby Lewis is averaging about an 89-mile-an-hour fastball. Yeah, not very pretty there. But, yeah, thanks again to Max Muncy and Coco Crisp for breaking up that no-hitter and shutout. But, it's time to look at the obvious trade candidates. I was just mentioning to Arthur off air that it's looking like at least 2 guys minimum, I think, are probably going to get shipped out. My money's on Valencia being one of them, and maybe like Lowry or I think Valencia and Hill would be the top 2 right now, just because those make Hill's a mid-30s pitcher, and Valencia's on the wrong side of 32.
Yeah, I think
in contract years.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that Hill can stay healthy enough to get dealt. But I mean, really, what are you going to get back for him? Nobody's going to give up that much. But I get anything, because you could see going into that signing that they were just hoping that he would be able to put together a somewhat decent first half of the season so that they could get some sort of chip for him.
Yeah. And the other candidates we've mentioned before, like Madsen, there's no use in having a dominant closer or a dominant reliever, if for that matter, on a team that's not contending, that has no hopes of contending this year or even next year. So he's on the block. Lowry's on the block. I've never been a huge fan of Jed Lowry, so I wouldn't cry over him leaving.
Yeah, I was excited about him for the first time that we got him, because he did show a little bit more power a little earlier in his career, but now I think he has like 1 home run. But he's bats at a decent average, but he's totally expendable. He's just a stopgap guy.
Yeah. So the one good thing that we did mention a little bit earlier, I briefly touched on, Daniel Mengden, he's got a fantastic mustache. I just have to keep throwing that out there. It's lovely to look at. Totally nostalgic of the days with Raleigh Fingers and Dennis Eckersley, all of those just manly men of the old days, the great A's players. But he's looked good. I mean, he's got no support, but he's looked very good. And for a rookie coming up, I mean, he's given up, I think, 2 or 1 earned run in both starts and gone about 6 or 7 innings in each. So it's very good in my book. So he's looking good right now. Minaya, unfortunately, did hit the DL for an arm injury. I think it was his forearm that got strained. It doesn't seem too serious. He should be back within the next few weeks. But if those 2 guys can show a lot of promise, that's all I need from this year. We'll just keep building towards next year.
And then building towards next year. And then building towards next year.
Another one. And then also we do have Reddick, who's nearing a return from the DL, and Henderson Alvarez, I think, is finally going to make a debut here in the next, I'd say, 2 weeks.
Well, thank God. I mean, it's a little late for him, but to do anything. I mean, that's another guy that you hope at some point is able to put it together. I was hoping that he was going to be able to make a return a little bit sooner so they could hopefully try to flip him or get...
Well, because he's on a 1-year deal.
Yeah. So... I mean, it's great.
My thing is, I just want him to occupy a starting rotation role that Eric Surkamp doesn't have to fill. I mean, that's what I'm so sick of him coming up and giving these spot starts of 3 innings and giving up 6 earned runs. Why is he even getting the ball anymore?
Yeah, there has to be somebody else down in AAA who
and
can
the other
at least
guy
go
they
5.
tried, Zach Neal, I think he came up and he sucked too. They're going back to these same guys who are just giving no results. So they need to keep going with the young. I love that they brought up Mengden finally. They're just like, let's try one of these prospects, and boom, he's actually done really well. And so hopefully Alvarez comes up and is just a way for us to avoid and have a little more pitching depth and not have to worry about just getting that automatic L every 5th every 5th game. But so let's get on to the more promising side of the Bay Area right now. The orange and black, they're looking good.
5-game winning streak that I haven't been able to watch whatsoever. But hey, we are looking pretty good right now, and our pitching has been incredible. Bumgarner and Cueto, 2
of the top 5 ERAs in all of baseball.
Oh man, I'm just gonna give you I've the Cueto's a number I've got for Cueto since May 2nd. So it's been 8 starts. 8 starts since then. He's given up 7 earned runs in 8 starts amongst about 60 or 70 innings pitched. I mean, he's been unstoppable. His ERA's dropped from a 3.02 to a 2.1, and he's getting unassisted pickoffs. I mean, what else can you ask for a guy? He's doing everything right now. And you combine that with Bumgarner, who's just been, I mean, I don't want to say his normal self, but yeah, he's just been running through guys as well. I think he's got a 1.91 ERA, so even better. I mean, it's been the top 2 guys, and then you have just Samardzija. He's cooled off a little bit, but I mean, once again, our big 3 has been carrying us through this June, which has been nice because we've lost some bats. We had Hunter Pence. He's been out still. He's going to be gone till August. We talked about that last week, but they've survived without him. I didn't think it was going to be such smooth sailing for the Giants, but they've looked pretty good without him.
Do you think it helps a lot? Well, obviously, it's kind of a rhetorical question. I think it does that they targeted guys like Samardzija and Cueto, and obviously already having Bumgarner. With those three guys, the big factor that is, I think, overlooked, especially because of the bullpen woes that they've experienced at times, those three guys, what they do is they go deep into games.
You see,
whether or not they may have a rough start every once in a while, but for the most part, they've been pretty good.
Yeah.
They'll give you 7-8 innings almost every game. And so that it helps so the bullpen doesn't have to really pitch as much when those guys are on the mound. So it's mainly just Kane or Heston or whoever else is pitching, PV, those starts that they have to come in and pitch a lot.
Since May, Bumgarner hasn't had a start where he's gone less than 6 innings, and he's only had 4 of those starts go 6 innings. So about 5 starts or so where he's going 7, 8, 9 innings in that period. Cueto, I'm pretty sure it's exactly the same or something like that. He's been, 8.1 innings, 7 innings, 9 innings, 9 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings, 8 innings, 7 innings. They're exactly, because they've had to cover for a terrible Giants bullpen, something like second to last in strikeout percentage, fifth to last in bullpen ERA. Like, they have been pathetic on the back end. So they've been the top 3. You're right, have been an absolute necessity to get us through some of these games.
Hey, the bullpen hasn't been absolutely terrible though. I mean, they've had some moments. I mean, Castilla, he's blown 4 saves, but he's also got 14 saves. So I mean, he's been serviceable, I guess. He's not. I'm not going to call him good or very good, but he's. You could have a lot worse, I'm going to say.
That's true.
So he's been at least holding his own, I think, and his ERA is sitting at a pretty respectable 2.67. So it's not. It could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
So I still do think they need bullpen help. I think if they're going to go for any kind of trade target,
it's bullpen over outfielder.
It's bullpen.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Everyone's talking about this Ryan Braun to the San Francisco Giants rumor. I don't think that's anything more than a rumor. The price for Ryan Braun is going to be way, way too high for what we have in our.
The thing is, I got a checking in the savings, but all the money is in my savings.
Prospect cabinet right now. We don't have a lot of players to throw out there at him. We'd have to maybe even give up one of our major league players to make a move for him or something like that. But
well, the projected or proposed, or I don't know what the word is, but the deal that I saw floated around by some of the experts that they were kind of hypothesizing over was that Tyler Beede would have to be in the deal that gets Braun. And that, to me, is a no-no for the Giants because that's it. That's your big prospect right there, and I don't see why you would get rid of him. He's a starting pitcher. Those are pretty valuable big prospects to have, and it's not. Don't act like PV is going to last a whole lot longer in that rotation, or Kane, or any of these other guys. You're going to need a guy like Beede to come up to the rotation pretty soon in the next year or so. So I don't really like the idea of shipping him off.
And on top of that, Ryan Braun's in his 30s. He's set to make $100 million more dollars. His contract doesn't run out till 2021, and he's supposedly coming off a PED since he got caught for that. I mean, I think the Brewers would be including a substantial amount of money in the deal, so the Giants would in no way be paying the entirety of it. Mm-hmm. But my thing is just they can't get rid of the starting pitching prospect that they have. He's huge.
Yeah, because this looks to me a lot like a similar situation that they were in when they went and made that move for Carlos Beltran. I mean, it was a different situation with Beltran being a free agent and leaving at the end of the year, but it just reeks of that same deal. And so hopefully I'm sure the Giants are smart enough not to do something stupid like that. Especially when you look at his diminishing power numbers since all the rumors have been floated and since the suspension and everything, he's just clearly not the same player that he was. And imagine him trying to hit balls out of the park there at AT&T. That it's not a good combination. Yeah,
and I feel like the Giants front office, when they make the moves for those big players like the Carlos Beltran, it's kind of blown up in their faces. But when they get the guys who are like not the top tier players like a Cody Ross or something, those are the guys that all of a sudden are coming up clutch in the playoffs, making the timely plays that you need made. So it's just been working out for us going the other way on it. So I'm just very
on the flip side of
cautious.
things, I do have to point out Beltran had a very good track record, so I don't fault the Giants front office for. I say it's a bit of an anomaly that happened.
He was good with the Giants when he came. The rest of the team fell apart around him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people just view that as like that was a bad move. They shouldn't have went for Beltran. He had a great track record, so I don't fault the Giants front office for that. And with Ryan Braun, he has also a good track record. I think he would hold up pretty okay over the next few years, and you do get contractual control over him, not just a rental. So it wouldn't be a bad deal, and you can't argue that he's not a big upgrade over Blanco or anybody else that they're going to throw in the corner outfield. So I will say there is substance to this. I just don't really see it in the cards. But the other rumor I did see around floating was that they might be interested in one of the trio of Yankees relievers.
Yes, I heard about that,
definitely think they don't have the ammo to pull off one of those deals.
Same. You know, they did make a minor league deal to shore up possibly some relieving pitching.
I saw that, and I was about to text you, and I was going to be like, I don't get it. I don't get it. Gene Machi's back in the brown, or the orange and black.
A week after getting cut and then pissing all over, getting arrested for some disorderly conduct, the Giants made the smart decision and decided to get him on the cheap. You know what? I mean, I think it's a low risk, low
pretty
reward.
Easy to get a guy when no one else wants him. Yeah.
Low risk, middling reward sort of deal there. Like if he's good, like just throw him in at a long relieving spot on the major league roster. I'd like to see that again. But I mean,
speaking of nobody wanting you, I do have to quickly throw out just off top, still on baseball, but Jose Reyes. It looks like nobody really wants anything to do with him. Good. I'm I'm really happy about that. The Rockies did get rid of him. I hope he remains unemployed. I don't stand for anything like domestic violence or anything of that nature. So good. I'm glad he served his time. Don't get me wrong, but people who think like that.
I've got some bad news for you then.
Oh, did he sign?
No, but he's
Days.
no. that'd be terrible news. No. It's Kansas City Royals whose name's being drawn near. Yeah. Apparently.
Really?
Yeah. The Denver Post.
Why would that
8
surprise me?
ago.
The same team that employs Yordano Ventura and Kelvin Herrera and Gerard Dyson.
Yeah. Let me see what this report says.
He's a bit over the hill anyway.
Alex Cora is the source on that.
Alex Cora.
The former shortstop?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember he was doing some...
To play second base for Jose Reyes.
Oh, yeah, because they DFA'd Omar Infante at long last, finally. Yeah. After that was a miserable contract signing, giving him a 4-year deal, and he did not live up to that hype at all. I'm not in love with... Robinson Cano being the exception, I'm not really in love with giving out big deals to second baseman. That's one of the most interchangeable positions that there is.
Seems like every year there's a new guy who's, it's the hot breakout second baseman, and then next year he's just batting .265.
D. Gordon.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Giants, they got a pretty comfy lead in the NL West right now. So what do you think would be the best way for them to upgrade right now? Is there a specific guy, a specific position that they should target at the deadline? Are there any specific ways that the Giants can upgrade the team?
Well, if you had asked me 2 weeks ago, I would have said outfield because of the Hunter Pence injury and the fear that they might falter. But it seems like they've been sustaining themselves pretty well while they're waiting for Hunter Pence to come back. So I'm going to stick to what I said earlier and say relieving pitcher because it's been not very good. I still think our relieving's been pretty terrible this season. And like you said, they don't have a lot of assets to give out there for a big name player. So a couple players that I saw on here, Tyler Thornburg out of Milwaukee, that kind of reliever, like he just says setup guy or comes in.
What I think the Giants are unfortunately going to be pigeonholed into, and this was another bad trade that I'm going to bring up, and that's unfortunate because normally a name like Tyler Thornburg would make sense, but unfortunately when that Ken Giles trade disaster happened over the offseason, the Astros acquiring Giles for 5 prospects. He was a young reliever who looked kind of like Thornburg. that's kind of ruined the entire market for young relievers now, because now the Brewers know that they have a Ken Giles type, and they're going to ask for a ridiculous amount of prospects because they're going to point right to that Ken Giles trade.
Yeah.
So I think the Giants are going to be looking for vets, guys like on expiring deals or something like that, someone to come help out. The two names I had in mind, wear green and gold right now, Ryan Madsen and Sean Doolittle. those would be two names that I think the Giants should maybe look into.
Yeah. Sean Doolittle definitely.
Because I think the Giants really need a lefty too, because Lopez has really struggled this year.
He sounds such a good contract though, Sean Doolittle. That I mean, I feel like the A's might even want to give up or raise the price just a little bit more because of that.
He's been struggling enough this year where I think that he could be had for a little bit cheaper, though.
Yeah,
he hasn't struggled totally, but he hasn't had his usual dominant year. So I think he could be had for a pretty good price. I think that'd be a solid pickup.
Yeah, definitely.
When was the last time, though, that the Giants and A's pulled off a deal?
I don't know. I don't see why it would matter because, I mean, they both play in separate leagues.
Yeah, no, But
they do hate each other.
There are a lot of rumors that have gone back and forth for a long time, and the last one that I can remember was a long time ago. The Ray Durham deal. I think the A's traded Ray Durham to the Giants.
That might have been the last one.
And like before that, it was like, I don't know, Stan Javier or somebody like that. But they just don't ever seem to work together, even though a lot of times the pieces kind of fit together to where deals would make sense. But it doesn't seem like Sabian and Bean have a good working relationship, to say the least.
Yeah, there might be some hostility there because of the whole dispute about the A's trying to get that stadium built in San Jose.
Yeah.
And the Giants just refusing to give up the rights to that area. But, I mean, it was the A's who gave it to them in the first place.
Yeah.
But it was kind of the A's fault. They did kind of misread the situation.
Yeah, I'm sure that Bean just blocks all of Sabian's calls.
Ray Ratto says that the last time these two teams made a trade was in 1990.
1990. What about the Ray Durham deal, though?
That's what I'm going to go and figure out right now. He's saying it was.
I don't care what Ray Ratto says.
Yes.
Was that the one from 1990? Was that
Darren Lewis, Ernest Riles in December of 1990?
I remember those guys.
Let me check out.
It was only yesterday.
Ray Durham.
Maybe Durham was a free agent. I think it was like 2002.
Could have been.
The A's.
There's been a lot of guys who've donned both uniforms.
Yeah.
Eric Burns, Rajai Davis.
Yeah. My boy, Rajai Davis. Let's see. Yeah, it was a free agency.
Marco Scudero.
3-year, 20 point. Marco Scudero, man, what a guy.
My boy.
What a guy. I love it. Yeah, that's one of the most loved players in the Bay Area now because he's what he did for both teams. Like, what a guy. Yeah, so Ray Durham contract. So it's in 1990. Where were we? I kind of got off topic looking for that info.
It was pieces that would help the Giants this year.
To be honest, all I really have at this point is relieving pitcher. Like I think, throughout the lineup, we're kind of set. Other than the depth outfielder.
I think an intriguing piece to maybe bring aboard that his name has been heavy in the trade rumors the last 2 years is Jay Bruce from the Reds.
Hello.
Well, hi.
Name's Bruce.
He's killing it this year.
He's producing very well. He's playing on a Reds team who's kind of challenged all around in pitching and offense and everything, but he's still one of the league leaders in RBIs. So that'd be an intriguing. He's a rental too, so it would be interesting to see if maybe they can work something for a nice big left-handed pop that can hit into the McCovey Cove.
You would be going though from the biggest hitters park in baseball to one of the worst hitters park in baseball, and a lot of his numbers are based off his 15 home runs. I could see that.
Lefties do better in AT&T than righties do, I think, though, because you got that short porch.
But you never see guys hit it to over in right field. I mean,
I think Bruce is a pretty Deadpool hitter, so I don't think he would be. I mean, he would be affected. Don't get me wrong by the move, but I think he would be okay. He'd be okay.
Yeah. I'd like to see him. His
defensive shortcomings would be my only concern there because he is a bit of a liability with his glove.
Put him in left field somewhere because I don't.
One in the corner outfit. You're not going to put him in
right. Yeah, obviously not that, but I don't think he could play right field with that wall. Learning it midway through the season. I feel like.
But I mean, in the interim, while Pence is out,
that's true. That's true. Without Pence,
that is his position. Bruce does play right.
Yeah, I know. So I'm just worried how he's going to take that wall. Something bounces off the wall, and
Yeah, it's a rough place to play
without getting good practice in. But, I mean, other than that, things are looking good for the Giants. They're rolling through this June, which is completely unexpected. So they're one of only 4 teams with 40 wins at this point or something like that. So,
as far as outfielders are concerned, though, I think if you're going to break the bank and go for a big bat, screw Ryan Braun, go for Carlos Gonzalez. I'm loving that a lot. I don't buy into the people think that he's a splits guy and he performs a lot better at Coors. I watch him rake outside of Coors Field all the time. Yeah. He's a great hitter. So, and he's proven in the last year or so that he's kind of over the injury bug. So I think he'd be a nice pickup.
It makes sense. I guess if you're already at the point where you're going to go, we'll have to give up a lot.
Because of his contractual standings, too, I don't think you'd have to give up as many prospects if you agreed to take on the entirety of the rest of his contract. I think it's only just this season and next season, but it's a pretty substantial amount of money.
Yeah.
But the Giants have it.
Yeah,
they have it.
Yeah,
they can totally take it on and then just agree to give away fewer prospects in return.
Yeah. Any other based on? I mean, that's Giants talk for me. I've got one other thing I quickly want to mention.
Yeah, go ahead.
Ichiro.
Yeah, Ichiro did. He broke, quote unquote, Pete Rose's record. There's a lot of people that are going to say, "Oh well, it's not the MLB hit record because Pete Rose did all of it in the major leagues." But you still got to give credit where credit's due. Over both leagues to have that high of a hit total, that's insane.
And he's going to get 3,000 in the MLB right after the All-Star break or before the All-Star break.
He'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Oh, absolutely. I wanted to give a quick shout-out to him for being just so good. At 42 years old, he's essentially Julio Franco at this point, and he's killing it.
Ichiro and Bartolo holding it down, man.
Yeah. Yeah, Bartolo's the only guy in the league who's older than him at like 43. I love that.
I don't know if people are really ever going to point to and like take seriously the overall hit record, because when you think about it, the guy who holds the record for most home runs between the United States and actually he never played in the United States, so never mind. Saruharu O, he had 800 home runs in the Japanese league or something like that, but I was thinking that he had a little bit of a cup of coffee in the major leagues, but
I really think like Japan ball is like high AAA, I'd say. So there's definitely a skill difference
to the people that discredit, I don't care, dude. 800 home runs to do that many times, that's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't care where he's playing. I mean, that's really cool. I wish I could have been a fan over there just to watch him play.
Yeah.
All those years. So that's I would have loved to see him just in one game, because I'm sure he would have hit 3 in that game.
Yeah, he only played 200 career games.
Yeah.
All right, time to get into the more heated part of this show, this podcast. We're going to be talking about what just went down in the NBA Finals.
We're going to Game 7.
On to Game 7, yes. Warriors and Cavs.
Ayesha Curry is right.
Yeah. LeBron James even said it, to Steph, see you in Game 7, Playboy. Yeah.
And okay, so what I was just talking about there was Ayesha was saying that the refs or the NBA is trying to extend this series. The counter argument to that is that the NBA is already getting its money no matter what, which is true. The NBA is not going to get any more money than it would if it was 6 or 7 games. But there's so much more exposure, so much more fan interest with a Game 7 that I think Ayesha Curry may have a little bit to what she says.
No, there definitely is way more money to gain, though, with a Game 6 and Game 7. The ticket revenue and the ratings on TV.
Okay, I'm talking about the NBA. Sorry, I'm talking about the NBA. The NBA. I was talking NBA. Their deal with ABC, their TV deal. They're not getting any more money. They the money for the NBA Finals is set. Yeah.
I think with the Game 6 and 7, there is more exposure and there's more ticket sales and revenue and buying jerseys and buying pop. I don't know whatever else they're selling. There's way more money to be gained, whether it's by the NBA or whoever. But
Wait a second. Let me see what happened here. Back.
So let's get on to the topic of LeBron James. Let's address the elephant in the room. How do we feel about LeBron James, the so-called king of the NBA?
You guys go first.
As you could see by his Twitter handle, King James.
I had always had a lot of respect for him, and I had always actually even been indifferent. It's like, yes, he's a great player, but he never did anything that I saw that was out of line until this series. And then you start to look at the whiny nature of him throughout this series. You look at the way that he pointed at Steph Curry to make sure that the ref saw that 6th foul so that he was getting tossed out. The way that he has been just a bully through most of this series so far, I have lost a lot of respect for him. And I think that part of that also has to do with the fact that, he has spent so much time trying to orchestrate championships rather than having them happen organically around him, like the Warriors have, and let the GM handle the situations and put them together. And I just have no respect left for this guy. He has no shame, and all that he wants is to try to preserve his legacy, to try to eclipse Michael Jordan, and he does it in the worst way. And I can't stand watching him now. I mean, he's a great athlete, great player. He's fun to watch in that way. But when you put everything else together, I really think that his legacy is taking a little bit of a hit here in this series. Now, if they go on and win Game 7, nobody's really going to remember much of that. But if the Warriors do win this and they beat them 2 years in a row, and then he opts out of the contract and ends up somewhere else trying to get Kevin Durant or somebody like that to follow along with him, I mean, he's just going to dig himself an even bigger hole.
He's cold and calculating. And I think that everything he's done in these NBA Finals are exactly what he's needed to do and wanted to do to give his team a chance to win. I don't think straight up that the Cavs would be where they are if they had. I think they've gotten into the Warriors' heads. I think they got into Draymond's head first, and I think they're in Steph Curry's head now. And they might have been in Steph Curry's head the entire series the way he's been playing. I think LeBron's been tactical with what he's been doing. He with his interactions with Draymond Green. I mean, we all knew what the situation that Draymond Green was in. He was one flagrant away from being suspended, and LeBron baited him. I mean, he baited him in what he did, and it's thrown this team off completely. So yes, I agree 100% that LeBron has acted terribly in these finals. But like you just said, if he wins, it doesn't matter. No one's going to remember how a team won 30 years from now. They're just going to know that LeBron won. And if he loses, though, when you said that I wasn't even thinking about it like that. I thought just time would forget it like that. But if he loses again, I could definitely see, like, you've lost both these years against the Warriors. You had this whole thing behind you, and you kind of did some questionable things to get to it. And now you're going to try and leave again and go join another team because the Cavs aren't going to do it. I mean, it really draws some questions about, come on, dude. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, it sucks for me because I'm gonna end up going on a little bit of a mini rant here, but to preface this, I will say it sucks because there are good guys on the Cavs too, but with LeBron's attitude and his play, it makes you not like the other guys because they all have his back and they're all cool with LeBron and they're gonna have his back. So it makes me not like the other teammates of the Cavs even less. But, I mean, you got guys like Kevin Love, who I like. He's a decent guy, and Kyrie Irving's a decent guy. But there are some chuckleheads over there, too, like J.R. Smith and Iman Shumpert.
Yeah.
But with LeBron, it's just, I don't even know where to begin with him. The way he's acted and the way it's not just now that he's in the NBA Finals and everybody's looking at him, now he's getting more exposed, I think, to what he truly is, but it carries throughout the entire season. I will say, like Eric said, it's all calculated. He's a very, very smart individual.
Smartest basketball player in the league right now.
Really, really intellectual person. He knows what he's doing. It's because of the stuff when he says, it was quoted in an interview, him saying he didn't know about Draymond's foul situation. Are you serious? You knew about that from the very minute it was announced. You knew about it, and you planned on it, and you executed on a plan to get him tossed. So it's stuff like that, and then when you got the stupid coach with... that guy is such a moron. Tyronn Lue, he comes on and actually says, like we talked about this last week, saying LeBron doesn't get calls. I don't even want to address the stupidity of that nature. I mean, like,
He's had the referees, the fans, and everyone in his pocket.
The referees are in his back pocket. That's not even up for debate. Anybody who thinks otherwise, go look at the clips. Go look at the tapes. Go look at all of it. I mean, he's just like James Harden. Every time he crashes to the rim, he's going to get a foul call. If you even think about contesting a shot, he's getting to the
You know what even
line.
infuriates me more than him getting to the rim is the defensive fouls he commits. When he swipes and misses and hits someone in the arm or the shoulder and they don't call that, that's what just makes me livid. It's like, come on, it's so obvious and right in front of you. That's the one we can see so clearly, and you're missing it.
Lots of YouTube clips you'll find online of him traveling a lot, too, and double dribbles, and he just gets away with whatever he pleases. It's LeBron's league, and we're just a part of it. But it's the fact that the Cavaliers, just as a team, they're all like kind of giving into this kind of mindset that LeBron's leading. Let's keep in mind, this is the same dude that leads the league in getting coaches fired in NBA history.
Yeah.
And don't tell me that he's not, because he is the sole reason David Blatt is unemployed right now. He's the sole reason why Mike Brown got tossed out of Cleveland. Mike Brown was the coach of that Cleveland team that got to the playoffs. Is it Mike Brown's fault that LeBron choked in those playoffs all those times ago? No. It's not complete. Maybe Mike Brown isn't the coach of the century. But Mike Brown's not a terrible coach. It's LeBron just couldn't get it done, and they needed a scapegoat. So Mike Brown was the guy. And then they switched coaches again, and Blatt comes in, does a pretty decent job, wins Coach of the Year, and then gets canned, and then LeBron needs his boy. The reason why Tyronn Lue was hired is because he just gives in to whatever the players want.
Yeah. I think one of the saddest things about this is that LeBron James, one of the greatest players to ever play in the NBA, one of the best physical specimens to ever play, why is it that he has needed to orchestrate so many things, whether it be through, like you say, with coach firings, whether it be through persuading players to be on his team, whether it be from bouncing back and forth in these opt-out deals? Why is it that if he is so great, why has he had to do so much orchestration of rosters and of coaching staffs in order to get those championships?
I think I can answer that, and I don't think that answer completely has to do with championships. I think it has to do with the labor issue. And I think LeBron, as that's more of a LeBron flexing his labor muscles, his NBA PA muscles, to give more power to the players in terms of. Did you see before LeBron started doing these opt-out deals? Did you really see guys thinking like, "Oh, I'll just sign a one-year deal with an opt-out so I can work the cap next year"? Like, I think like he's implemented like a lot. He's given a lot of power to the players. So in terms of championships, I agree. Like it's kind of not the best look, but in terms of you look at where the NBA PA was before LeBron got involved and where it is now, and I think the players have a lot more power. So I think that's the way I look at that.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. But, I mean, the only people who are able to really flex those muscles are going to be the stars of the league. Yeah. It's not like he's helping out, the Anderson Varejãos of the world and stuff like that. But even still, the fact that most of this is done in order to win these championships so that he can be talked about in the upper echelon of some of the greatest ever, you never saw, I'm sure that Michael Jordan did plenty of terrible things, and Kobe Bryant did as well, but they never had to get to this level where they have to go out and try to manipulate every little aspect of a series or every aspect of their free agency. And it's disgusting to watch from one of the stars of the league.
Yeah. And I'm going to sound like a LeBron apologist right now, and I don't mean to be. I'm just going to try and throw out one more reasoning for that. Looking at the context of LeBron has had to do a lot just to get where he was. I mean, the situation he got thrown into, he wanted to go to Cleveland, and Cleveland's his hometown, but Cleveland has had brain-dead front office for about 10 years, 13 years. That's as long as he's been there. Yeah, they have a good squad around him now. I don't know how much is that attributed to Dan Gilbert as it is to LeBron's being able to recruit and put a plan together. But when he was in Cleveland that first run, when he was doing a lot of that firing of Mike Brown and some of that stuff, like they were ridiculously bad. Like Mo Williams was their second best player for most of that run. So I can understand like why he made some of the moves he made then. Not that I want to say it's justified, but I can I can, like, if you put yourself in, like, that bad of a situation, maybe, like, okay, like, some of it kind of, but that's all I have to say about
LeBron James, I think, embodies what's wrong with today's NBA. You could look at what he exhibits and what he shows to the public and say that's what's wrong with today's NBA. I think that the NBA legends, there's NBA legends who kind of disrespect Steph a little bit and say that he's not as great as people think he is, but I think they are all just too chicken to really say out in public that they're ashamed of LeBron. They're totally ashamed of him. And there's several reasons to go into. One being that he thinks he puts himself on such an echelon and he thinks so great of himself. When you look at his NBA Finals record, that's all. It's really all you need to look at. 2-4 in the NBA Finals. Even if he wins this Finals, he's still under 500 in all of his Finals. So let's not look at him bringing a championship to Cleveland, making him one of the best of all time. That's not how it works. Jordan's sitting there laughing on his couch right now with all 6 of his rings. Kobe's sitting there with 5 of his rings. Shaq too. Those guys, he's not welcome in their company, I think. While I will say at the same time, I'm not disrespecting his talent. He is undeniably one of the best talents we've seen in the NBA. But I think it's such a shame that it's wasted on a guy with a mentality like him. You do bring up a point and you have substance in saying he's for the players. That's not why he's doing it, though. You forget this. He is one of the players. He's doing it for him. Consequently, other players are benefiting from it, but he's doing it for him. Yeah. He's one of the greediest guys you'll ever meet. He's going to take as many endorsement deals as he possibly can, from McDonald's to Sprite to whoever's going to throw money at him, Sprint, whoever, and then he's going to keep re-upping with the Cavs and just stealing money from this franchise every single year, opting out, creating this buzz about him and getting all the attention on him every summer. If he's going to go anywhere, he's not. I think he's going to stay with the Cavs regardless this summer. And he's just going to be trapped there because he left in the first place.
Yeah, and that's a really good point, because even if they do lose, he's going to take a hit in his legacy here. But if he leaves Cleveland again, I don't know how his legacy can withstand another hit like that if he goes somewhere else, obviously just to go to try to chase a championship in such a disrespect, in such an unrespectable fashion.
Do you agree that maybe that I guess you already do agree with what he said, but if he keeps losing, he's never going to leave Cleveland. But if he wins, he might be out of Cleveland after this offseason.
No, I don't think I agree with what you said, in that he's kind of trapped there now.
He's trapped.
Going back for a second time with so much of his legacy tied to that city, tied to that franchise. He's stuck for at least a few years till he is clearly on the decline, and then maybe, he can go and try to be, a third piece for another team that's winning a championship, and then nobody's really going to care because he's 34, 35 years old, and he's just going to be padding his championship stats. But
I just have a very Stephen A. Smith argument to make with me right here, all right? We'll all agree that LeBron's very, particular with what he does, right?
Yeah.
And he said in that article he wrote, let's win one for the city, all right, for Cleveland, all right? Let's win one for the city. One for the city, all right? So I'm telling you, he's going to win that one, and he's going to dip. He's not going to, but I wouldn't be surprised if that happened because, we've seen how conniving he is.
I think he made a mistake by coming back to Cleveland. In all honesty, I think by coming back to Cleveland, he trapped himself. But if he had stayed away, people would eventually have it would have died down. It had already pretty much died down. He went and won titles in Miami, whatever, him, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, so let's all have a party together in Miami, whatever. But now that he came back to Cleveland, he threw all that pressure back onto himself. It's like he welcomed it, and he wanted it. So he put himself in this hole. If he loses again, it's his fault.
Well, he thought he could take the Miami's Heat. He thought he learned enough of the Miami Heat blueprint to implement it in Cleveland. And I think what's happened is there's a half-baked Miami Heat blueprint in Cleveland now. That's it.
Well, yeah, that blueprint is just get 3 stars and try to win a championship. The blueprint is have one homegrown star like Dwayne Wade was in Miami and like Kyrie Irving is here, and then put two other pieces together. That's the blueprint, and that's the blueprint that everybody else in the NBA is trying to copy.
I also mean behind closed doors, like the Pat Riley sort of just like fall in line sort of. Like it's a lot more structured in Miami than it ever was in Cleveland. I'm assuming it still is in Cleveland.
Yeah.
And so when I was talking about how he embodies everything that's wrong with the NBA, the other big thing I wanted to get at too is he is a perfect example of the whining in today's NBA. And I will say it's fair to say he's not the only one who does it. There's Warriors who do it. There's everybody in the NBA does it to a certain extent. That's what's wrong with today's NBA. That's why those legends are all looking at just like, oh, these wusses, these guys, like they wouldn't last a day in our league. They're crying after every single time they drive to the rim and get hit or whatever. That's what's wrong with today's NBA. If I was an official, I was telling this to my brother yesterday when we were watching the game. I said, if I was an NBA official, I would set a precedent in the first quarter, and if anybody opened their mouth, I'd immediately call T. Immediately. I would not take any crap. That's what you need to do as an NBA. I think they're too soft.
Yeah,
they let these guys run their mouths too much. I would immediately call it. You need to set an example, and it needs to be set on a big time guy like LeBron or Curry or Draymond, whoever. They let them run their mouths too much, and that's how they get away with it.
Yeah, I don't know if the NBA would allow that to happen, because when you start getting the NBA doesn't want to have somebody like LeBron getting teed up in the first quarter and potentially spend the rest of the game potentially on the brink of being thrown out because they want that player on the floor for all four quarters. I think that the NBA would step in there. And I think that actually this is something that the NBA in theory doesn't like, and that a lot of fans obviously don't like, but it brings more attention. It keeps people talking about it after the game. People tune into the press conferences now to see who's going to call out the referees, who's going to get fined for it. And all it does is generate more publicity for the NBA. And so they probably really don't care that much. I mean, they don't want to see their officials get slandered in the media and stuff like that, and they'll throw fines out there, but they don't really do anything to stop it because it doesn't do anything except help the NBA in the long run. And
so I do want to kind of shift the focus to more of the officiating now. I will say I'm not going to sound like a total Warriors apologist right now and say that it's all the NBA and the officials' faults why they lost. They didn't deserve to win that game. Well, I've mentioned this before. They shot poorly. They made really stupid turnovers.
Where is Harrison Barnes?
Arthur and I were mentioning that we're off the re-sign Barnes bandwagon.
I was never on that re-sign Barnes bandwagon for the record.
Before this last game, though, before this 0-for-8, he had still been, even with the 2-for-14, he had still been having an all-right NBA Finals. It is completely gone off the rails, though, at this point. 2-for-22 in the last two games.
He's getting wide open looks because the Cavs are just letting him shoot.
Yeah.
He's the new Draymond Green. Like, they're
Tony
just
Allen.
letting him take as many threes or whatever that is as he pleases. They're just like, we'll double team Steph and leave him all alone.
Yeah, that's embarrassing. He's fallen so hard.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad. But as far as the officiating goes, the reasoning I wanted to bring up here is not only, I'll go into Steph in a minute, but even Kevin Love was getting he was getting screwed on a couple of calls by the Cavs, and there were some other instances with Tristan Thompson and some of those guys. The officials just sucked. They really sucked.
This is a point I wanted to make, and I kind of want to tie this into your whining, to what you're saying about whining, all right? I think that when the NBA eliminated hand checking, all right, those fouls became... The referees, they adapted to that, but when it still came inside, the referees don't call fouls unless you really look like you get knocked over, right? And I think that's what has bred this sort of flopping and sort of whining culture, because they're not getting the calls unless they go up and say, are you kidding me? Did you not just see what he did to me? Or if they're just like Andrew Janverzowing and falling over, or Dwayne Wade to an extent. I won't say Dwayne Wade's a flopper, but Dwayne Wade knows how to, once he gets hit, to contort his body to get the foul call. So I think we've lightened up the rules on the players, and they're really taking every inch that they can get from the referees, and that's what's causing a lot of come on guys, so just play the game and stop whining. And on top of that, the game's gotten so much faster now. I think that's applies to why refereeing has degraded just so terribly.
No, that's pretty right on right there, actually. I agree with you. And what I think is really unfortunate because of that is I'm always a constant looker at at the example they set for the youth and the kids that are coming up and playing this game. How boring of a world is it that we're going to live in now? All these kids, they're not even going to need to rely so much on skill. You're going to see kids in these backyard games and these church league games or whatever when they're growing up, AAU, and they don't even need to have skill. They can just run to the rim, flop, and then just fall down and like just complaining about getting hit all the time and then live at the free throw line. How is that fun to watch? These kids don't even need to work on polishing their skills. Just be good at basketball. And then you'll be good at basketball and win. Why are you whining so much and complaining and relying so heavily on contact and other factors you can't control? Just be good at basketball. It's not that hard.
I remember when players looking for the foul, like early 90s, early 2000s, that didn't used to happen too much. I feel like nowadays players go up inside the paint, like with a person next to them, they're always looking to get that, like, let me take this weird shot so it looks like I got fouled or something. Let me do something, floor my body around. Like, it's just...
I call it the Paul Pierce effect because he's my favorite example to use is like he would always use that pump fake and then jump into somebody to get fouled. That was the Paul Pierce move. And even Kobe was pretty good at it too. But I'm so sick of seeing that. Just be good at basketball. It's not a hard concept. Just work on your game, get better, and win. I think it's the guys who maybe just aren't that talented and just realizing they need the result to getting whacked more, and they try to put themselves in situations where they get fouled.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that part of it too is the way the game has changed with removing some of the physicality from it, in that a lot of guys were a little bit more tentative to go to the lane before in the the 90s eras and preceding that as well, because you would get hammered and you would get hurt. A lot of these guys, there was a lot more physicality in it, and now they know that they can go in there and they can just get bumped and try to fall down and try to get that extra free throw shot or get those 2 shots or whatever it is.
You need to worry about a Karl Malone elbow.
Yeah,
anymore.
Exactly. Yeah. And there just aren't as many big guys who are as physical and who can be physical because of the changes in the rules there.
Yeah, but I do want to get back to the Steph Curry issue with the officials. That is one thing I'm really, really pissed about. And I think that the NBA should be ashamed of in general because he gets whacked around, scratched, clawed, thrown down. And the only argument I've heard from this is, well, he's small. He's small and it just happens sometimes. It's not Steph's fault that he's small. He's the way he is because of genetics. That's why he's the way he is. You can't do anything about that. He does get thrown around when you got guys like Dellavedova hounding him and pulling his arms back when he's trying to free himself off a screen. So many instances where he's getting clearly fouled and the refs just bat an eye. They turn the other way. They don't care. That's the MVP of the league 2 years running and a reigning NBA champion, and you're disrespecting him constantly. Is because he's not LeBron effing James.
It's the result of the referees letting more go in the playoffs, wanting it to be a tougher game. I mean, they're letting these things that Steph is not getting calls on. That would have been called easily in the regular season. Like you see, like so many times where guys would be holding on to Steph and they get a call early in the game to deter that, and now it's just not there and they don't even care. Yeah.
I mean, and I will say, as there's a lot of haters that are emerging of Steph, especially after the whole mouth guard incident, which we'll talk more about in a minute too. That, and then they're just jumping on the LeBron bandwagon again, and the haters are coming out. Steph Curry still is the most popular player in the NBA right now. Most popular. I mean, his wife is more popular than Kyrie Irving.
Yeah.
She gets more publicity, and Riley Curry is more popular than Kevin Love. I mean, that's how popular that family is.
Yeah.
But other than that, where it counts is in the NBA and the officiating, gets nothing but disrespect, I think. I don't know if it's because they don't like the fact that a 6'3" guy who's small by NBA standards is like the so-called face of the league right now, winning the MVPs, and they want a big behemoth like LeBron back in the forefront of things. I don't know what their agenda is, but they just it's constant disrespect. And it really sucks as a Warriors fan because when you acknowledge it, then everybody's just going to think that you're creating a list of excuses. I would have this same argument if I was a Bulls fan or a Timberwolves fan. It's just pathetic to watch.
Yeah, I think that a big part of it is just the adjustments that get made in officiating, and like you were bringing up earlier with in the finals trying to let him play a little bit more, and that's part of where the perceived slight is coming in, and that I think that the referees are attempting to let this. They don't want to have some of these games determined by free throws. They don't want to slow the game down too much. They don't want to put Curry on the line too much either. But it's the adjustments that get made when it comes to refereeing some of these games does appear to be unfair, and it seems to be unfair to a smaller guy like him. But he has to be able to adapt to it. I mean, at the end of the day, he's going to have to be able to adapt, and he's still going to have to produce. And I mean, he did in, Game 5 where he had 38 points or whatever, but the first 2 games, he's just not adapting to the way that these games are being called. And I think that, honestly, I think that a lot of this is in their heads now as well, and that these things are being used as excuses for some of them and some of the fans and things like that, because this can't be the first couple of things that we point to with what's wrong, is that, Steph's not getting the calls. Something else is going on that team. Something is in their heads. Yeah. Obviously, the injury issues. Obviously, the long season with playing so many games and so many starters playing so many minutes. And LeBron, of course. But, you have to point at what's going on the court outside of the officiating first with what's going on. And one of the things, just real quick, that I have never been a fan of, like the MVPs and more of the stars of the league getting that preferential treatment when it comes to foul calls. So I almost like this a little bit, that he's not getting those calls, because I don't think that any of them should. I don't think that there should be preferential treatment in terms of what gets called a foul and what doesn't, just because somebody is a better player or is more marketable or is the face of a franchise,
No, I agree with you. I do think that everybody needs to be equal. I'm totally with that. My thing is that more eyes are on Steph Curry, though, and when it's much more obvious when calls are missed on him than other players, like an Ian Clark or whoever the hell else on the Warriors or the Cavaliers. It's the fact that there's more eyes and there's more pressure on when he's involved in the play. I do agree with you in that the Warriors, like I said, they deserve to lose that game. They need to look in within themselves and find out what went wrong and what they can adjust. Iguodala is also hurt with a back injury right now. Bogut's out the rest of the playoffs. There's some issues right now that they need to work out.
Barnes is dead.
Harrison Barnes is a total non-factor. But the one thing I do want to say, though, that kind of I'm not really buying the fact that the refs let things go. The Warriors were called for 3 fouls within the first 90 seconds of that game yesterday. The refs will call when they want to. They will absolutely just throw the whistles when they want to.
Ridiculous calls. So it's just...
Yeah, but I think the big thing at the beginning of the game is that the referees see the potential that this series could get out of hand with how heated it's been, with Draymond Green. Draymond Green, honestly, I think is a loose cannon who has the potential to pull off some Ron Artest stuff on the court. And I think that the NBA is definitely making a concerted effort to make sure that they set a precedent early in the game that fouls will be called to try to make sure that something doesn't get out of hand, because it is on the verge. It is, and hopefully it doesn't happen in Game 7.
And see, so when you mention that and you're saying that early on they call those fouls, what is the problem with calling an early tee or two to just settle everybody down? Because it's just a tee. It's not ejecting anybody. It's just setting a tone and saying, hey, it's the same thing. It's setting the tone. It's like making sure they don't step out of line. A guy like a Draymond, because you don't get ejected for one tee. You don't get ejected for a flagrant one.
Yeah.
There's reasons why those are in place the way they are. It can be a sort of a warning. And trust me, when guys get there, they're much more careful. They're not going to still have that same kind of reckless behavior after getting one tee.
Are we? Oh, okay. I thought you were going to say after being close on tees, because Draymond has proven
no,
that.
not about like a total accumulation, but just like in the game, in the moment.
Gotcha.
They definitely they get more conservative if they get that one tee.
Yeah, but earlier you were saying that the tees should be dispersed for whining and overly complaining to the referees.
There should just be a precedent set it though. It will help with the overall state of the game. It'll stop some of the whining and complaining.
Didn't they already do that 3 years ago?
With what?
With they made that rule that if you do, it seems like they completely ignored the rule now. But 3 years ago or so, they had that rule where if you complain to a referee, it's a tee like almost immediately, and they enforced it for like a good 2/3 of a season or so. And I feel like they just forgot about it ever since
then.
The
only rule that's like that I even know of is that an MLB manager can't complain after a review is had. That's the only really thing because he'll get immediately ejected. That's the only rule. That's the only rule that's kind of like that I think is well, at least that isn't enforced right now.
Yeah. No, I do recall something like that, and I think that's just discretionary for the referees. Like, there's no real set guidelines for what exactly is going to get you a tee, and that they can pull that out of their back pocket. But because it's used so infrequently, and because so many people do whine and complain, that they can't be calling them left and right all the time.
Yeah, this is 6 years ago when referees were instructed to call technical for making aggressive gestures, such as air punches, demonstrative disagreement, such as when a player incredulously raises his hands, running directly at an official, excessive inquiries about a call. I mean, I think we've seen like a bunch of those in the past 2 or 3 years, and they just don't get called anymore.
Yeah, it's all subjective for the referee. It's up to the referee, and I'm sure that when it comes to the finals, the NBA sets a very clear guideline for what they want the refs to be looking for and be ultra-conservative on and ultra-liberal on.
Yeah, I'll say that, Draymond Green has a reputation for himself, and I'm not going to defend him and say that he's a saint. Obviously, there's many things he does that I wish he could have taken back, that he wishes he could have taken back.
He's a crotch hunter.
Yeah. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, you mentioned he's a bit of a loose cannon. I don't think he would ever quite reach over on our test levels. Hopefully, I don't really think... I think he's at least a good enough guy. He seems like a good guy off court, at least. Like It's just like he's a real animal on the court when the lights are on him. But as far as... What I'm really pissed off about is the fact that LeBron is immune to tees and any kind of calls of that nature whatsoever. Steph Curry will get called for a tee. He'll get ejected. Draymond Green will get called for a tee if he keeps mouthing off. LeBron James, there was nothing that can be done for him to receive a tee almost. When's the last time that he got a technical foul? Can either of you recall?
I definitely can. And the thing that happened last night with that block on Steph, towards the end of the game there, that was definitely borderline.
That should have been a tee.
Yeah, that was
should have been a tee
because for taunting.
Because he was taunting at him, clearly taunting him on camera. Like, you saw him, and he just, like, his facial expressions and everything. I mean, come on, dude. You got to know the pedestal you're on and the people looking at you and idolizing you and you're a role model to them. You can't be mouthing off to players like that.
But I mean, I honestly...
Stay humble.
I found it.
What is it?
He dunked on someone and he taunted him, so he got a technical like 3 or 4 months ago.
Okay.
My point is, it's very rare. He has to do something just totally stupid.
There was also that technical where he tried to sub himself out, and it didn't work.
But I don't necessarily fault him for what he did after the block on Curry yesterday. I mean, he's hyped up. His team is making an incredible comeback. Now, whether part of that is due to the officiating or whatever it is, but I mean, imagine how hyped up you are at that point when it's very clear that you have victory in hand. You're going to force it to a Game 7. You just block Curry so aggressively. Of course, you're going to be hyped up, and I wouldn't have wanted to see a tee there in that situation because it's excitement. He didn't really cross the line. I mean, in the NBA rules, possibly, but clearly not to the officials. So I wouldn't have wanted to see one there.
I didn't see it, so I don't know.
The Facebook back and forth I had last night about, like, we were going back and forth about LeBron and Curry. And the guy I was talking with, he brings up the point about how Steph Curry's the golden boy of the NBA, and bringing up the points about that's why. And he thought that Steph got a lot of calls, and which was all just BS. And there was no substance behind that at all. I will say though, Steph Curry is the golden child of the NBA because he earned it. Other than this one instance that everybody's going to throw him into the fire for because he threw his mouthpiece, and like you said, it's an in-the-moment thing.
Yeah,
he just got called for his 6th foul in the NBA Finals, and he thought he had been absolutely screwed on 3 of them at least. Yeah, and he did say he always tries to, like, not that it's going to be a big difference, but he said that he was trying to throw it at the scorer's table. He by no means ever meant to hit a fan. It was not his intent to throw it at a Cleveland fan. Obviously, I believe him. Other than that, he is one of the most humble guys, one of the nicest guys on and off the court that you would ever meet. He has instances where he'll do a little stank face or whatever, but he doesn't do it to anybody. He just gets pumped after he makes a shot. He will never disrespect anybody on the court.
I don't know.
When would be an instance when he does?
He did it to Serge Ibaka in the playoff series where he hit that 3 and stared him down as he would. But the thing is with Steph is that people don't look at it as intimidating as other players because he's so small, but he does a lot of cocky stuff.
It's just a stare, though. It's like with LeBron, he's sitting there jawing at Steph, like making it known, like, hey, you can stare at somebody because he made the shot. He just made a shot on you. He could stare at you if he wants to, but if you're going to start mouthing off at somebody and like actually taunting them or like pointing at them or doing something like that, that's when the line's been crossed, I think.
I was just happy to see some fire from him like that. I mean,
oh, yeah.
I think that watching something like that and seeing in the rest of the team seeing something like that, I mean, I think that that's going to put more of a spark in them, but I want to see that sometimes from him. I want to see that from Harrison Barnes because I think he's been dead for like 3 months and it's just a ghost walking out there. But I want to see fire from some of these guys. Sometimes it's a little bit too calm and collected, and now they are in a point where they are going to have to really ratchet it up a little bit because they not in both senses of the term ratchet
Bring out
it up.
Oakland and the Golden State Warriors.
But with Iman Shumpert and players like J.R. Smith and the way that LeBron James has been playing, it's clearly sending a message to them and it's working. It is helping them. It is helping their energy level. It is helping them to be able to be more aggressive on defense. So I want to see a little bit of that. Sometimes I want to see somebody else other than Draymond Green on the Warriors doing that. And I don't fault Steph for that at all, the situation that he got into there. I want to see that. I want to see him do some yelling, do some screaming, whatever. Their back's against the wall. They are screwing themselves out of the perfect season ever. So they should be upset. They should be mad right now.
Yeah.
I don't know that they need to be mad at the right person or thing. Like I think that they have been getting angry these last 3 games, but it's been at LeBron and it's been totally throwing them off their game. So there has to be anger, but it needs to be focused. You can't just have, these outlashes these lashes out that have been costing the Warriors games.
This is where I think the reason why Steph is perceived the way he is largely outside of that one incident and being the golden boy and everything is because of how humble he stayed and because of how he's kept his composure. That's the key right here is you need to keep your composure in Game 7. The wrong thing to do is to get too heated up and too fired up, get more tees and have LeBron get in your head or whatever. Keep composed. Klay Thompson is the perfect example of using this. He's unfazed by anything. You could throw a rock at his head and he just doesn't care.
I didn't see the game last night. How was Draymond?
Draymond was a different guy. Honestly, I mentioned this to Arthur a little bit ago. There was a look in his eye where you could just tell it was still in his head. It was really in his head.
That's what I was worried about.
It wasn't LeBron in his head. It was the fact that he missed the game and that he let his teammate. He really is taking that to heart, and I think it's really messing with him.
I was worried that he's always now one flagrant away from going back on being suspended if he plays with the heart he usually plays with. I mean, I was just worried that he might think, oh, if I do one wrong thing, I'm out for Game 7 if we lose, and then that's that almost.
Yeah, and when when something like that is in the back of your head, you're playing a different game. And he kind of disappeared at times. He was doing a really good Harrison Barnes impression when he was out there, just disappearing at times. I think he only took 2 threes maybe. I think he missed both of them. But I think Game 7 is going to be a whole different animal. With being at home and being a little bit more comfortable and realizing the position that they're in and being able to focus some of that energy, I think that, and also he can lay it all out on the line now. You know, it doesn't matter if he gets suspended now. It doesn't matter if he goes crazy or something like that, because this is the end of the line for him. So he needs to get out of his own head.
Yep. So I think we'll get into more of the keys for Game 7 now and the what the Warriors can do to win this game. My big key here, it has nothing to do with LeBron. It has nothing to do with Steph or Clay or Kyrie. My big battle to look forward to is Draymond versus Tristan Thompson in Game 7. Tristan Thompson's offensive rebounds are a big reason why the Cavs are scoring so much. Huge. Nobody's given him much of a fit down underneath the basket. He's having his way.
He's had something like a playoff high 9 offensive rebound chances per game, and he's executing on a playoff high 5 of those. I'm pretty sure, maybe 4.5 or something.
It seems like he's getting way more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you're looking at what's going on down in the Battle of the Paint there, it's just crazy how Thompson has been able to have his way down there and be able to snag every rebound and stuff like that. But it's definitely a even more dire situation right now for the Warriors. Without Bogut, Festus Ezeli, I'm sorry, I don't have any faith in him being able to be physical enough to get Thompson off of the block there. But Thompson, if he keeps rolling the way that he is, the Warriors are going to be screwed here. But that's definitely a good point, that he has definitely been the difference maker there.
Maybe if we can get, this is going to sound kind of stupid, all right? But Mo Spates is playing about 10 to 15 minutes a game, all right? And he's only known as offensive. But Mo Spates is getting angry. I think that I heard that Mo Spates didn't like that he was only playing basically at the end of garbage time at last night's game. I kind of want to give Mo Spates a chance. Just one game, just let it, because when he puts...
The problem is this is the game.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But he's usually terrible on defense, but there have been 1 in 5 games or so where all of a sudden he has a solid defensive effort. Not going to say a good defensive effort, but I'll say a solid one.
On one possession?
No, I'm saying an entire game. He'll be able to put together a game of defense.
The problem with
and I think he might be primed for that. That's all.
His go-to move on the defensive end is flopping.
Taking the charge call.
And taking the charge.
Yeah.
That's his go-to.
Yeah.
And secondary comes actually trying to contest the shot.
Yeah.
He'll just stand there and try to just have guys run into him. That's his first, and he's 6'10", and that's his first instinct is just to stop and take a hit. I don't get it. He needs to be more aggressive.
But I mean, I do think that I was questioning several times out there last night why he wasn't in the game. I understand the defensive liability that he is, but even when they were going cold on offense, he's somebody who can get it rolling really quickly. And I understand the defense, but why is he so far in the doghouse here with Kerr? Why is that?
There might be other reasons we don't know about. We don't always know the entire story. I will say when the times that are appropriate to play him, there are definitely times where you could use a Spates in there, but is the end of the first quarter, beginning of the second quarter, the end of the third quarter. That's the 3 instances I think where you can afford to play him. You can't afford to play him at the beginning of the game, the end of the game, the entire fourth quarter for that matter.
Here's what I'm saying. You put him on Kevin Love, and you just let those two score against each other.
Kevin Love's been... If you want to talk about the big 3, Kevin Love's not part of the big 3. It's Tristan Thompson.
The big 2 games ago, the big 3 scored 84 combined points, all right? So I don't know what you're
Kevin
talking
Love
about.
Had 2 of them. Or 3 of them.
I don't need to know. It was 2. It was 41 from the other 2 guys.
Yeah, Kevin Love, that's a pretty substantial contract he's got there for Cleveland, too.
Yeah. I worry about in Game 7 just with the length that the Cavs have in the rebounding advantage. I think that they out-rebounded them in the last game by over 10. And just having the option of Love and Thompson down there against who? Ezeli and Draymond? I mean, Draymond's got a lot of heart. He's a good rebounder, but at only 6'7", how much of a fuss is he going to be able to give either one of those when battling for rebounds there? I just don't think that they're going to be able to win the battle of the boards there. So I worry with Love. I hope he doesn't put together one of his 30-rebound games.
Without Bogut.
One of his Minnesota-esque games.
I was gonna say that that was the same problem they were having in the Thunder series, and they were able to put one game there at the end where they actually out-rebounded, or I don't know if they ended up out-rebounding the Thunder, but they were ahead by like 10 rebounds at one point. But that was with Bogut. So who knows if they'd be able to
It's the small ball lineup that's just not being as effective. When Tristan Thompson's on the floor, the small ball lineup is not as effective because he's going to just inhale all the rebounds.
Yeah.
Draymond might get lucky a few times, but it's mainly Tristan Thompson who's cleaning up the glass.
Yeah.
Well, Kerr was warming up one James Michael McAdoo for... all I got was an eye roll.
See, Arthur and I also talked about how Barnes and McAdoo are kind of the same person in that they don't have a single skill set that's very polished. It doesn't exist. There's not I think Eric and I talked about this a few podcasts ago where we were talking about most NBA guys and professional players in general, they have a specific skill set that's the reason why they're there, that they're really good at, whether it's defense or like rebounding, shooting, passing. There's something they really excel at. Barnes and McAdoo, they're just athletes. That's what they are.
Barnes is good with a clear path to the lane. And we know as often as that situation comes up in the NBA.
He becomes the Black Falcon when there's nobody guarding him.
That's not even true anymore. He's been terrible the last 2 games while wide open. So what am I even saying? Like, he's been just bad.
On breakaway dunks, he's very good.
Yeah.
Very effective. Who's going to give him a max deal?
See, this is what really angers me is because Barnes and Ezeli both are not even close to deserving of the contracts that they're going to get offered this offseason.
Yeah.
And that's going to be the reason why the Warriors are just put in a really tough situation because we have to decide, is it even worth bringing these guys back, matching those offers? And I honestly think, no, it's not. I'd rather bring in a Bazemore or an Al Horford or whoever and just use the money more wisely on somebody who actually deserves it.
It's kind of the same situation the Heat are in, except Hassan Whiteside's actually pretty good. Yeah,
Hassan Whiteside actually is pretty damn good at blocking
yeah.
and controlling underneath the rim. That's something that Barnes can't ever hope to be good at.
I want Barnes to go to China. I want him to get a max deal in China and play for the Shanghai Dragons or whatever it is. I'd
play with Stephen Marbury.
Yeah, exactly. They can make their own Kmart shoes together. Have a lot of fun with that. But get off the Warriors, dude. Play one more game and have your swan song, but get out of here. I get it that he's been a serviceable piece of this team that has done tremendously, but what does he do? What does he do? I don't see him do anything. Like you said, no skill set. He doesn't do anything particularly well, and he's just definitely not deserving of any sort of max deal that he could potentially get.
Agreed.
I hear the Brooklyn Nets and New York Knicks like just throwing money at people and then just hoping for the best. So maybe they'll just be like, "Hey, Harrison Barnes is free. Hey, how's $90 million sound?"
Yeah.
Yeah, it sound good. What does he do good? He's just runs up and down the court and he's a body on the floor and he can play the 3 and the 4. Whether he plays them good, that's up in the air. But
yeah, I can see him just going to a crap team and averaging 18 to 20 if.
On 8 of 22 shooting per night.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. Like he's not put himself get his money. If he wins the championship, especially this year, 2 championships, and he's making his money now for the rest of his career. Like you might think he's set. Like at the end of the day, it is a business. But I know it's disappointing.
Yeah. So I mean, hopefully we can salvage whatever we have left going for us in the final. I think Iguodala's health is going to be huge too, whether he can be a body that can somewhat slow down LeBron, because we know that LeBron's pretty possessed in these finals and he's scoring at will, but Iguodala on him definitely helps. And Draymond Green can also switch on to him too. But the problem there is when Draymond switches on to him, then we have somebody who's totally undersized on Tristan Thompson or whoever is the rebounder. So
it's going to have to be Harrison Barnes. And
Unfortunately.
and there's
or
our
McAdoo,
issue.
McAdoo the rescue. We could have McAdoo in there. Brandon Rush even had a pretty decent little stint yesterday. So.
I would rather see Brandon Rush starting over Harrison Barnes right now, because at least you know that he can hit the 3 ball. He may be able to score a few points. Whatever, I don't care, whatever type of liability that he may be on defense. I want Barnes out of that lineup. Just go. Leave him in Cleveland, actually.
You could have Bob Myers interviewing Brandon Rush this offseason, like, hey, Rush, how does $19 million sound? We had it reserved for somebody else, but we think you're better suited for it now.
That sounds good, but I think that one of the things we might overrate is Harrison Barnes' strength, and that might be something that does help us out when we have those small ball lineups and Brandon Rush in there, like defensively.
Barnes isn't that much taller than Rush, to be honest.
I just mean it. They're about the same size, but Harrison Barnes is a lot stronger than
he is. I'd rather take Rush's defense and his shooting though over Barnes' just toughness. I'm sorry, I just can't really buy into like a guy. I mean, you make a good point. He is very. He's very stout.
He bodies up much better. He bodies
up pretty well.
Would,
He's a pretty big 3 or 4, but I mean, it's just not enough for me.
Okay.
It's good. It's a good regular season quality, not a great postseason quality.
For sure.
But hopefully the Warriors can get something going. Yeah, Sunday night, be there or be square. Honestly, it's going to be one of the highest rated things
ever.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's a 30 national market share. And
it could. I mean, it's
Jordan numbers.
Yeah. It's going to be highly watched. We're going to be enjoying every minute of it. Hopefully we get another trophy coming to the Bay Area, a parade.
Hopefully I don't have work.
Yeah. I will be watching it from work, actually, unfortunately.
I might have to do the same thing. All right, so social media?
Yeah.
Arthur, start us off.
You can find me at CouldBeArthur on Twitter. You can find me, same thing on Instagram, CouldBeArthur. And you can probably, find me sleeping on your couch tomorrow night.
Eric Harmon at EH24 The Mamba on Twitter and Snapchat. At Harmon24 on Instagram. That's it, basically.
And me on the tweets, and also just find me on Facebook. Say what's up. Ask if we can hang out. We'll go get donuts.
Dub and Harmon Podcast on YouTube, on Spreaker, on iTunes.
Please subscribe, YouTube, iTunes. Show us some love. We'll keep throwing you out these episodes. Having a lot of fun doing them. Once again, thank you so much, Arthur, for coming on the show. Always a pleasure having you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Thanks for asking me to come back. It's always fun.
Mailbag is going to make another appearance next week. I'll make sure of that.
We'll bring some mailbag back, and then we'll have Arthur right back on the show pretty soon.
Couple other.
Yeah, whenever. Let's just make sure we have 3 mics, though.
Having to push our heads together has been a little bit of an awkward, but we worked with it.
It's okay, yeah.
All right, you guys stay classy.